You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, April 3rd. You are joining us for another Wacky Wednesday with my co-host, as always on a Wednesday, is Dezi. Dezi, how you doing today?
Whoop, whoop. I am refreshed. Spring break was last week. Sorry I missed everybody, but fun in the sun. We just went to Orlando. We didn't go anywhere fancy. Just down the road, but hell no. If you live in Florida, you do not do Disney. You avoid it at all costs. In fact, you try to avoid Orlando at all costs, but we had friends that came down. So we did a little resort poolside action and just chilled. It was good. It was good stuff. Good weather up until today. It's a monsoon, but that's how we roll in Florida.
Oh, well, yeah. Glad you didn't get stuck in that. And glad you had a good time off. Thankfully, there wasn't even much to talk about last week, but we got a little bit more to discuss this week. And we'll just start it off with an update from something we were monitoring last week. And that would be Brock Wright, Lions tight end, who was offered a 3-year, $12 million offer sheet by the 49ers. He is currently with the Lions. He is currently in RFA, the same thing that Juwan Jennings is, but the 49ers actually try to steal him away. As we know right now, no one has tried to steal away Juwan Jennings. So Brock Wright stays with the Lions because the Lions matched the 49ers offer of 3 years, $12 million contract. And so he's going to stay with them. And the 49ers, I guess, are still looking for their tight end too, because, I mean, you have to imagine that their interest in Brock Wright and signing him to this contract had everything to do with the fact that maybe they don't feel so confident with the guys they have currently behind George Kittle. And currently those two guys are Cameron Latu, last year's 3rd-round pick, and Braden Willis, last year's 7th-round pick. As you guys know, Charlie Warner left in free agency to Atlanta, and Ross Dwelley is a free agent right now, but maybe they're exploring other options before maybe deciding to bring him back. So, Dezi, is this a concern for you that the 49ers tried to get a tight end too? They didn't, and so now they're still kind of looking to fill that?
I mean, I think it's not a high need in my mind. And I have to agree with Chris here. Who says, didn't understand this. Is he that good to be a tight end too for the 49ers? I think his production's come down a little bit, but I think the Lions collectively have just been a better offense. And so I think much like, on our team, when you have other people producing, your numbers can kind of go down. I think maybe that's really what we're seeing there. I think he's reliable. I think he has experience. I think he's someone you can put out on the field with a lot more confidence than what we have right now. But I'm still hopeful that, especially Latu, I just, a deeper dive into what he could potentially be. And it's only been a year. I think I'm hopeful that, he's coming along, but maybe this is a sign that he's not where they actually need him to be just yet. So be interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I don't know that we've really talked about it much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of my concern. You see this tweet that I'm sharing here. Matt Barrows on Twitter was asked from a follower, is there any hope for Cameron Latu? And Matt Barrows said, yes, the 49ers expected it would take some time for him to adapt. The question is whether he can do so this year. In parentheses, their move for Brock Wright suggests they're skeptical. And yeah, that's exactly kind of what I gathered from all this. I mean, if you're looking for a tight end too, clearly you're not feeling confident about the other two guys that you have. And so they probably wish for Cameron Latu to continue to develop, Braden Willis as well. And I mean, you mentioned Latu coming off an injury as well. That's another thing you don't always want to bank on. Now, of course, I don't even remember what his injury was, but he was placed on, was it IR? Yeah, I think he was on IR right before the season started, or maybe it was a pup list. But yeah, I mean, he missed pretty much a season where he could have been like developing and waiting in the wings, right? To kind of
Yeah.
like rehabbing. So how
His
much do you think that
meniscus.
kind of affects his meniscus? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you see that kind of affecting him like going forward? Is that something that can linger? Is that something that could get re-aggravated? Or is it like something he can put behind him pretty easily?
It really depends. Meniscal injuries, they can be repaired or they can be kind of shaved down and just, kind of air quote cleaned up. So I'm not quite sure what they did in surgery intraoperatively, but these things are pretty common. I don't foresee this being a long-term problem. He's still young. I think, I think there's still a lot more we can do with this guy. And I think the 49ers in drafting him, knowing his background, he was on the defensive side of the ball. So he used to play defensive end and got switched over to tight end. And he hadn't really played a tight end position since high school. So, I mean, this is going to take some time you're going from defensive to offensive and then Kyle Shanahan's offense. Like, there's a lot to learn there. There's a lot, to understand about the position alone, let alone all the different plays that you have to memorize and be ready for. He's explosive. He's got the power. I mean, the things that they like in him, I think, are still there. I think the meniscus sucks, but when does all that come together? Will it all come together? I think it's going to take a couple years. I don't think we can look forward to this season be his breakout season. Maybe. I'll never knock it out. But again, listen, John and Kyle are going to play it safe. They're going to have, if they had the opportunity to sign someone that has the experience that can kind of be a plug and play player, yeah, you go after that and give Latu or the other tight ends opportunities to get to where they need them to be, is probably my thought.
Yeah, and in addition to all the things you mentioned, how difficult it could be to adapt from having played defense and then moving to offense, college to NFL on top of that. And then he also struggled with drops, in camp, as 49er Media here points out. And that was kind of another area of concern, so much so last year that he almost didn't even make the roster, right? Like, and so 49ers hoping that that's improved, but they're not banking on it, which I appreciate that they're not putting all their eggs in that basket only to find out that the basket has a hole in it. But like, here's going back to last year's draft and going back to just how the 49ers sometimes tend to draft. I was not a fan of them taking Latu with a third round pick. And this is exactly why, because he was a developmental pick and we're not sure he's developed enough in 1 year. And that's not Latu's fault. That's not his fault at all. I mean, he is who he was and he is who he's going to be. And I mean, that just feels like a bit of a miscalculation from the 49ers part.
Something just entered my brain, and it is Wacky Wednesday, and we talk wacky things on Wacky Wednesday. He was a defensive end. Do we throw him on the other side of the ball?
Chris Cosera can't have enough defensive linemen, so you just never know.
Sorry, not sorry on that one.
If honestly, like if he didn't work out as a tight end and they see so clearly that he's just not that guy, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, hey, he's still under contract, let's just try it. But obviously we're not there yet. But something to think about in the future if that were to happen with Latu. So
if it happens, just know you heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. She's taking the credit, people. She's taking the credit. And so on the topic of tight end too, though, the fact that the 49ers, again, like maybe don't feel as comfortable with who they have behind Kittle, this now brings up the question, okay, you struck out on Brock Wright. who do you bring in now? I mean, yeah, there's still some free agent tight ends. And I think like me and you on the show have talked about Robert Tonyan in the past. Maybe that's an option. Maybe they can bring back Ross Dwelly, although, you know, you also lost Charlie Warner, and I'm not even sure if Ross Dwelly is on the same level as far as blocking goes as Charlie Warner. So I don't know, like, do they upgrade? Is there an upgrade in free agency? If not, is there someone in the draft that they like that maybe they even consider a little bit earlier than, okay, not someone in the draft, but would they consider a tight end a little earlier than maybe we would have thought they would, right? That's kind of my thing. And mind you, this is not even a great tight end class. That was last year.
Yeah, no, I don't love any. I don't. It just hurts that Warner's gone now, right? Like if this is what we're learning now, it's like why? Like the Homer Simpson Dole just comes to mind right now. But I would hope that they've got some kind of answer for that. I mean, again, if you think about maybe there's going to be a change up in the offense. Brock Purdy, we're now seeing a different type of quarterback. You know, we talked about, you know, with Brandon Ayuk being a strong wide receiver that can just go up the field and get these balls that Brock is going to throw. He's a pocket passer. Maybe there's an opportunity where it's not as much of a featured, and we still have a great fullback that maybe can step in and fill gaps and do things like that, since we signed him to additional time with us. So I'm not sure how this all comes together. I'm sure they have a plan. I don't know. This is a puzzle piece.
Yeah, it's a puzzle piece. And I can say that just based on my draft sheet, some of the tight ends the 49ers have been linked to, you know, through this draft process. Eric All of Iowa, he's drawn a lot of interest from the 49ers, according to Tony Pauline. Jatavion Sanders out of Texas. 49ers have also shown a lot of interest in him, and he met with all 32 teams at the Shrine Bowl, so we know the 49ers have met with him. Then you have Jared Wiley at a TCU, who the 49ers met with at the Combine. Jaheim Bell, Theo Johnson out of Penn State. So there's a number of guys that they have at least looked into. And then there's like also like lesser known guys as well. But it seems like they are doing some research on some of those guys. And I would expect that to continue. It wouldn't even surprise me if we saw a top 30 visit with one of these tight ends for the 49ers, just because I do think it's worth consideration for them. So something we got to keep tabs on. But again, unfortunately, it's not going to be Brock Wright for the 49ers being the tight end 2 this season. So they'll have to look elsewhere. Now, as far as weapons for Brock Purdy, it came out not too long ago, I believe sometime earlier this week or last week, that the 49ers had some interest in Cincinnati wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Now, he is their wide receiver 3, but he's a damn good one. I feel like he would be wide receiver 2 on some teams, right? Maybe not the 49ers, but he's a pretty talented receiver. But I guess that was some time ago. I mean, Mark Kaboli of The Athletic, who put out this report, he said, quote, Boyd has at least had preliminary interest from Chiefs, Chargers, Dolphins, Lions, and Bengals. And so I got to wonder if that had anything to do with maybe them just kind of doing their due diligence on some wide receiver 3s before Juwan Jennings signed his tender. And even, the 49ers could be in the same scenario as the Lions, where, hey, someone signed an offer sheet for our player or offered a deal to our tendered player. What do we do? Do we match that offer? Do we let him walk? And if we let him walk, we better have a plan B in place, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that, do you think
I
that's
agree.
what Tyler Boyd interest is?
100%. Yeah, I think they're just sniffing around, making sure. I mean, you've got to make sure you're prepared for anything. There's, loose ends out there on both sides. Who knows who's going to come out of the woodwork with this, that, or the other. And I think you just got to have a sheet that says, here's our options and here's what we like and what we don't like. Speaking of sheets, just so everybody knows, I finally got my act together on spring break, and I almost have everything filled out on your massive spreadsheet. So I put in injury list, and some of those tight ends have some injuries that you just mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see what you think once I put that together.
Next week, let's talk about some of those prospects and who you would have off your board just based on their injuries. Because I would really love to hear, your insight on that. And I did a mock draft not too long ago, and I know we've talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry before on this podcast, and we talked about it was a Jones fracture, I believe, for him. And I got a lot of heat from the 49er fans. Mind you, again, it's just a mock draft. But a lot of people were like upset and were like, no, like don't draft injured players, especially if they're from Alabama, all these things. And I'm just like, man, I wonder what Dezi thinks about this. I know we've talked about it before, but that's what kind of got me thinking, okay, like, would that be worth taking him off your board? And so, like, again, I have that question for a lot of guys who have had other, injuries throughout this process as well in the past year. So we'll talk about it. Let's, put a pin on that for next week. I'm excited for it. And thank you for putting that together, and then excited to go over it next week. So
Jones fracture, I'm not scared. Bring it on. But I just told, I think I remember that tweet, and I literally was like, well, my option. Like,
exactly. Yeah. You know how I feel.
Tackle or nothing. No, I'm not.
Exactly. But man, he was just too good to pass up in that mock. And I think for the 49ers, if he was there, it kind of be the same thing for them. But, again, I know people.
The merch is going to be fantastic. The Kool-Aid Man is red. Like, just add some gold touches. Like, let's go. I need that T-shirt in my life. So, just from a merch standpoint,
the Kool-Aid Man is red. Like, there's so much you can do with that. Yes, right? I love it. So I love it. Anywho. I mean, that's awesome. That would be perfect for him as well, because then he'd be able to market himself better. I'm just saying, like, this could work out. Just saying.
Yeah. You know what? In other news, I know he's not a 49er any longer. D'Amico, that man, I'm straight up. Yes, there you go, Ty. I'm straight up going to call him Bob the Builder. Like, he is building a freaking dynasty down there. It is crazy. They just got Stephon Diggs. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm low key, like, a little nervous about what's happening down there in Texas.
But you know what? I kind of like it because it's the AFC, and there needs to be some more competition for Mr. Patrick Mahomes over there. So I welcome it, and I think I completely agree. I think D'Amico is building like a three-headed dragon over there, as he well should be. I mean, I love it because a lot of teams or a lot of new coaches, they're trying to build, but in a almost conservative way, right? Like, they are going all in right away. And I love that for them. I mean, the Texans had been bad for a really long time, and I love that for their fans too. And man, I might be one of them. Save some room on the bandwagon for me. Just saying.
I'm saying I'm going to be in Texas here this summer, so we'll see.
There we go.
See what's happening.
So that might be my favorite AFC team to kind of keep tabs on for sure. I also love 100%. Stroud. So yeah, some good things happening over there. Well, the 49ers continue to build as well. And, an integral piece of that is their latest signing. Packers running back Patrick Taylor Jr. He was signed to a 1-year deal. And I'm just kidding about him being integral to their, building, whatever they're building, because I mean, he wasn't even integral to the Packers. No shade on him, but to me, this is nothing more than a camp body signing. What I have seen, though, as well, though, I have to mention this. He seems to be a really good pass blocking back, which is important. And he seems to have some, what's it called? Special teams experience, too. So if anything, this could push some of the guys on the lower level of the roster. And I would even go as far as saying Jordan Mason. And I know a lot of people would not like that because Jordan Mason is a fan favorite. And I do agree. Like, I love Jordan Mason from the running standpoint, but I believe he lacks in the pass blocking department. And I think bringing in Patrick Taylor is probably, maybe trying to get him to feel some heat a little bit in that department so that Jordan Mason can maybe improve in that area. So maybe the 49ers kind of putting him on notice, because I'll say this, to me, it doesn't seem like the 49ers are as high on Jordan Mason as the fans are, and again, I like Jordan Mason. I like his game. I like the way he runs, but just based on what we've seen, every opportunity that he has had to get on the field, like, we haven't seen it. And I have to believe that's for a reason that we don't know, right? Like, the 49ers clearly feel a certain way about him enough that he's not getting those touches, right? So just a thought I'm having.
Well, fun fact, no one's getting those touches. You got Christian McCaffrey. Like, I'm just saying.
but dude, should he get all of those touches though? Like, I get he's like the shiny toy that you love. He's like the Woody, right? Like, Andy playing with Woody, like that's Kyle Shanahan with Christian McCaffrey. But like, should you wear him down that much? I mean, obviously he could handle it. I mean, he did last year without any, big injuries. But should you continue to try to do that every single year, or should you have like a number 2 that at least alleviates that a little bit, just a little bit?
Ty Austin said pause, and I was literally going to do the same thing. I was like, pause. Like, what?
Woody. Well, it's because I didn't add the context. I knew I had to say it right away, like Toy Story, guys. Woody.
So I think for Christian McCaffrey, this was his first real extended season, right? He was with Carolina. They didn't go to the playoffs. They didn't have anything more than 17 games. So when you start looking at being on a team like the 49ers, where we're consistently in the postseason, and not just in the postseason, but we're deep in the postseason, you need to be careful, and you need to start looking at rotational pieces and, knowing when, because he's getting a little bit up there. He takes incredibly good job of his body. And so I definitely think that anything that he can do physically to avoid injury, he's doing. I have full confidence in that. But human is human. And I still think that, there's opportunity for injury. I mean, look at how many times people grabbed his face mask. I kept thinking he was going to have a neck injury at some point. So he got through that. I know we've eliminated the hip drop tackle, so that may be beneficial for him. So we'll see, but I do like having a different person rotating through. I definitely think that the production on him was very obsessive and excessive, like you said, just very like, ooh, squeaky new toy. Let's go.
It's like, we get it, Kyle. Like, you have Christian McCaffrey, okay? Like, don't break him, okay?
Yeah, exactly. When his fiance is, showing videos and pictures of him, with the bruises and the bloody elbows and everything, and just kind of being all grittied up, it's like, okay, maybe we should take a step back.
And not just that, but he had like bruises. Like, yeah, dude was beat the hell up. He went through it. He went through it last season. But look, we also have some departures for the 49ers by way of some free agents. The latest one being Randy Gregory. It didn't seem like the 49ers were really making an effort to keep Randy Gregory. But important to mention that he won't count into the compensatory formula for the 49ers. So 49ers will not be getting a comp pick back for Randy Gregory. So just in case you guys were wondering with that. But I think the 49ers are okay with defensive line for now. I think we do expect they'll probably draft the defensive lineman at some point because they can't help themselves. But I think for the most part, I'm okay with Randy Gregory, departing.
Bye, Felicia. I'm good with that too.
Damn, you said bye, Felicia. So what did he do to you?
Nothing personally. I just,
do?
just didn't meet the expectation. You get all dolled up for a Saturday night date and you're like, wah, wah, just didn't meet the standard. Again, defense is my side of the ball. You've got to come. We lost 10% production on defense between the year before that and this past year. That hurts my feelings deeply. And so I'm doing whatever. I'm all for getting us back to that kind of gritty, nasty defense, which also we need to get Dre back. And I think I just saw something, by the way. Did you see that update that Dre is probably Dre Greenlaw is looking like a little iffy on week 1, which I didn't expect him to be back. Week 1.
Wow. Really? You think so? I didn't see that. I didn't see that, but yeah, right. Like I'm not at all surprised. I mean, that's part of the reason they brought in Devondre Campbell, and hopefully, if he's even just, I guess, like an ounce of what Greenlaw is, I guess they can squeak by for a bit without Greenlaw. But yeah, I also want these. I guess they're not rookies anymore, but D Winters, Jalen Graham, I want those guys to step up. And who knows, maybe it's another situation where the 49ers don't want to put all their eggs in that basket either, and they draft another linebacker, right? They do like to draft linebackers or bring some in as priority free agents after the draft. So I would expect there's going to be more bodies in that room. So we'll have to look out for it. All right. The last piece of news is not really like news or anything, but just to update you guys on where the draft sheet is at. I know you guys want me to zoom in here. I will zoom in. We got a number of top 30 visits that we are aware of, so just wanted to go through those really quickly, the ones we know of so far. So we got cornerback Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky. I like this one. He also had a formal interview with the 49ers at the Combine. I really liked him at the Senior Bowl. I think he projects to be a nickel corner at the next level. He's built smaller, than I guess like most corners, but he doesn't play like it. I like him. I like this top 30 visit. Then we have wide receiver Javon Baker out of UCF. I like this one too. I mean, if you saw any of his clips from his pro day, he can make tough catches look easy. He's physical at the catch point, like this one. Then we got defensive lineman Brandon Dorlus out of Oregon. He can play inside and outside. So, the 49ers do like to have that flexibility with some of their guys. So that one's intriguing. Then you got linebacker Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. We were just talking about, maybe the 49ers, draft a linebacker. They're doing some research on some of these guys. And then more wide receivers. We got Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. A lot of Kentucky guys, like the state of Kentucky. I know it's not, obviously Kentucky and Western Kentucky are two different schools, but, I couldn't help but notice. I'm saying Kentucky a lot. So Malachi Corley, who has been dubbed like, the Yak Master, Mini Debo, all these things. He has a top 30 visit with the 49ers. And of course, Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice out of USC. He has a top 30 visit. Now, if you have seen our show in the past, maybe you know how me and Dezi feel about Brendan Rice. And so we'll just continue scrolling at this point.
I will say both of those wide receivers clean. No injury reports that I kind of sniffed out. So, I mean, there is that.
Good sign. That's a good sign. All right. I'll give that
positive
to him. And then cornerback Jamal Hill out of Oregon, cornerback Charles Smith-Wade out of Washington State. So this one's interesting too. There's reason to think that there's been a lot of contact between these two. Smith-Wade met with all 32 teams at the Senior Bowl, had a formal with the 49ers at the Combine, and of course, now having a top 30 visit. So there's been quite a bit of contact there. So definitely some interest. And then edge rusher Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan. So again, looking at some edges here. And Sione Vaki out of Utah, safety, running back. And I'm going to just say this. I have heard that there's been they have met 7 times through, about 6 or 7 times through the pre-draft process, Vake and the 49ers. So this is huge. We know that they met at the Combine. We know there's a top 30 visit on tap. That top 30 visit is going to happen next week. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that one. Definitely an interesting athlete. I'm interested how the 49ers view him because, again, like, I think he sees him himself as more of a safety, but again, like, he has that running back experience in college, and he's been open to doing running back drills in pro day and I believe at the Combine as well. So he has been showcasing that to teams, even if he does prefer, playing on the defensive side. So kudos to him for doing that, and I guess being open to it. So yeah, as of right now, that's the list of top 30s that we have. And as always, you guys know the draft sheet is the Bible for any interest that the 49ers have in prospects. So make sure you guys check that out after this. If you have a moment, if you're curious about this, it gets updated nearly every day. So that's the latest on top 30s, and we'll probably know a little bit more next week. I will say this. I mentioned Vake's top 30 is going to be next week, and the 49ers tend to like to do their top 30 visits like all at the same time. I think that's pretty common, but I feel like they make it a point to have a bunch of guys in at the same time, maybe to just try to get that like camaraderie a little bit, see how guys do with each other. I don't know how that factors into their process at all. Maybe it's just easier for the scheduling guys. I don't know, but just keep that in mind, because when we see Vaki in Santa Clara, check Instagram, see who else is out there. That'll tell us a little bit more about who else is having top 30 visits with the 49ers.
Steph's the GOAT, man. Like, seriously, I'm in awe. I'm just sitting here in awe of like all the things. But I was also trying to cross-check my new list and spreadsheet to like see if there was any additional points to make. I don't think there was too much in
which is
addition.
Good. That's a good sign.
Good. Yeah.
It's a good sign. That means these guys have a clean bill of health.
Ish.
Okay.
Like, there's some stuff that might have already been on there. I think that it's not. I mean,
or it's just like minor stuff, maybe.
Just minor stuff, yeah. Like, not the only person that I don't know if you even mentioned him, Brandon Dorless. Did you?
Yeah.
From Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wait, that's not him. I'm looking at the wrong line. My bad. It's the guy underneath it. Nope. So never mind. He's fine. He just had a mild shoulder issue.
Well, then even better. Good to know.
Good to go.
I also wanted to say 30 visits or top 30 visits or just visits or 30s, like whatever you see it called, it's the exact same thing. And don't get hung up on the 30 number. Basically, what that means is it's pretty much just a max of the 30 players that a team can have in for a visit. It doesn't mean that the 49ers have met with that player 30 times, I don't know. There's just a lot to be misinterpreted with the wording, and everyone kind of words it differently. So yeah, pre-draft visit, top 30, it's all the same thing. And yeah, it's pretty much a chance for teams to just get a better idea of who they're getting. It's more so a getting to know that player kind of thing. And it involves the player actually visiting the facility and I'm assuming meeting with a lot of people in the org, some coaches, as well. So definitely a little more personal. And for the 49ers, it's a pretty big deal because if you look at their past drafts, they tend to draft at about 30% of guys who they bring in for top 30s, which if you look at, 30 visits and then how many draft picks they have, that's a pretty significant number in trying to determine who the 49ers are interested in, who might they actually eventually draft. And I'll also note this. It's not just important for that one draft season, but it could be important in the future as well, in how the 49ers bring in guys for free agency, for example. I think Gross Matos, who the 49ers signed, or Jordan Elliott. Sorry, it was Jordan Elliott who the 49ers signed in free agency. He was a top 30 visit in his draft class with the 49ers. So, just something to always kind of, keep tabs on. It is valuable, it seems, to the team in how they scout people and how seriously they consider them. So
perfect. I'll tell you guys this. This is my first year really diving into the draft like this. So I am learning on the fly.
Fun.
It's a whole nother side that I'm ooh, and terrified for my husband because he's really, this is what we're doing now. But but it's okay. Marriage,
great.
you live to make the other one irritated. So it's all good. No, it's a lot of fun. And the spreadsheet, seriously, I'm wow, there's people that are probably paid to do this within the organization.
Hey.
And how cool are these fans? We're amazing out here doing all this stuff and really looking at it. So kudos to all the Niner fans out there that just love the team and love the sport so much that, it brings us together and have these great discussions and fun times on Wacky Wednesday. I'm here for it.
There we go. Wacky Wednesday.
And I'm waiting for that Ty. I'm waiting for that Kool-Aid shirt. I'm first one in line. I want that thing.
Yeah, Ty said in the comments he would make Kool-Aid shirts for everyone. So we're
holding him to it for sure.
That's exactly the phrase I was looking for, and my mind was drawing a blank because it's Wacky Wednesday, guys. We are wrapping up here. A good bit of updates today, and thank you, Dezi, for joining me today, and adding your insight to everything. Appreciate it, and thank you to everyone that tuned in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, not just my channel, but Dezi's as well.
Yay.
And we'll be here next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Peace, guys. Have a good rest of your Wednesday.